Hey guys, welcome to Mad Scientist Barbecue. I'm Jeremy Yoder, and today we're in Texas. We're at an Academy Sports, and we're going to go inside and take a look at some smokers, and I'm going to give you my recommendations as to what smokers you should spend your money on. One of the questions I get asked most frequently is, I want to spend X amount on a smoker. What kind of smoker should I get? And so, to answer that question in video form, I'm here at Academy Sports in Grapevine, Texas, and I want to show you some of the smokers that I commonly recommend. Now, my default recommendation is always the Old Country BBQ Pits Brazos. Why? The reason why is because it's $999, which is a great price for the quality of pit that you get. Now, you could spend 3, 4, 5 times that amount to get a smoker that operates about as well. Okay, so there are several design features about it that I like in addition to the reasonable cost. The first one is how thick the metal is. So if we open this up, we see for a commercially available smoker, this has extraordinarily thick metal. It's a 1/4 inch thick. And another reason I recommend this pit is because of the smokestack itself. Because it's big and because it's located at grate level. Those are features that make this a great quality smoker for an incredibly reasonable price of $999. Now, the final reason I recommend the Brazos smoker is because this is the smoker that I spent my own money on, and I know from my own personal experience that this works really well and I love it. By the way, I'm not being paid to do any of this, so these are my honest opinions. You guys are going to get the pure truth, exactly how I see it, and so know that this is what I really think about all these smokers. Now, the second most common smoker I recommend, and the one that I think people probably might buy the most often, is the Old Country BBQ Pits Pecos smoker. Now, the difference between this and the Brazos is really simple. It's an issue of how thick the metal is. The design is essentially exactly the same. So it's got the same big smokestack. It comes in at grate level. It's an offset smoker. The difference is thinner metal, and then also these seals are slightly different. But I would recommend on either of those smokers, including some gasket to seal it up, and you get a good seal so that you don't lose any smoke. Now, let's take a look at this metal. Now, as you can see, this metal is definitely thinner than the Brazos, but in comparison to smokers you'll find at big hardware stores, this is plenty thick. So I think with this, what you get is something that works nearly as well as the Brazos for less than half the price. The price here today is $399, which is a steal, in my opinion, for something that's going to work as well as this works. Now, I don't own this myself, but I've gotten feedback from people who do, and they love it, and they say it works really well. Now, one interesting detail that I didn't know about until I actually got here was this right here. So these are spots where you can actually install an analog thermometer. And I didn't realize this, but this spot down here is one that actually provides a temperature that's closer to the grate than the one up top would be. I don't know if it was because they watched that Barbecue with Franklin video, but this seems like an interesting feature and a helpful one for those who are going to spend hours and hours trying to get meat to turn out well on the smoker. It makes sense for you to get an accurate temperature as you're trying to cook. All right, the next smoker I want to cover for you guys is the Old Country BBQ Pits Over and Under smoker. And this is one that I have and I've used, and I recommend this to people who want to get the kind of flavor you'd get with an offset smoker, but they're afraid that they don't really know how to manage the fire well enough. So this gives you a lot of leeway in terms of fire management. It's really hard to get it too hot, and it's hard to get it too cool, and so this is forgiving in terms of heat management while you're building your fire in the back. Now, I've made videos with this smoker. If you want to see those, I'll put some links in the description. You guys can check that out. But let's take a look inside really quickly. So you guys can see here, the metal is relatively thin in comparison to, say, the Brazos. But it's not paper thin the way a lot of cheap smokers are made. Now, the other advantage of this smoker is that you have a ton of surface area on which you can be cooking. So it's got this big grate on the bottom. I think it's even bigger than the main grate on the Brazos. And then it also has a relatively large upper grate where you can do even more cooking. So that is a big benefit. You can cook a lot of food here in a relatively small space. And then also, because of the baffle between the firebox and the cooking chamber itself, it mitigates hot spots. It kind of spreads the heat around evenly, so you get a relatively even cooking temperature, whether it's on the top or the bottom grate. Okay guys, as you know, we're here at Academy Sports, and I just ran across this smoker, which I've never actually seen in person before, but it looks really cool, so I thought maybe you guys would want to see it. We could check it out right now. Okay, so this portion of the smoker looks very similar to the main cook chamber on the Brazos. To me, to my eye, I could be wrong, but it looks basically identical there. So I think the door is a little bit lighter. The metal looks about the same thickness. The metal is 3/16 of an inch thick here, and the Brazos is 1/4 of an inch thick, so that makes sense. It's just a little bit thinner. And then it's got this vertical section right here, which I want to check out. Okay, it looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4 places for racks, and then it's got these. I guess maybe you hang sausages off of this or something to cook there. That's really neat. I like that. That's really cool. I wonder if they're removable. I don't know, maybe not. Okay, maybe they're permanent. I'm not sure. But the thickness here again is pretty thick. And it's got these 2 stacks up here, so you get still lots of airflow out of there. And so presumably this would be the coolest part of the whole smoker, and then maybe right in the middle of the main cook chamber I would expect it to be the hottest if you're not using any tuning plates. So this firebox is definitely way different than the Brazos. Let's open it up and look at it here. Okay, so this top grate is very similar to the Brazos top grate, so you could use it for grilling. The firebox is bigger though, for sure. And then, oh, it's flat on top here, so you could use this to heat something up. You could set up maybe a big pot of beans there, whatever you want to do. But you got kind of a flat heating surface there, and then a humongous door. Yeah. All right, so you got this big door here, and you got a huge area on the bottom where you can actually build your fire. And then it's got a gap, looks about that big, for the ashes to fall through, and you can scrape those out pretty easily, I think. I think that's why there's that gap there, because presumably your wood burns, the ashes fall down, and you can remove the ashes so nothing gets smothered. And then the last thing that I noticed is pretty different is the vents here. So that's a very different vent than the kind of sliding butterfly type of vent that I have on the Brazos. And I think I actually like that design, maybe even a little bit better. But I've never used this. I just think it looks really cool, and I thought you guys might want to see it too. Now, when people are asking me about what kind of smoker they should get, a lot of times they have vastly different ideas of how much effort they want to put into barbecue. So some people are going to be like me and want to be out there every few minutes checking on the fire and looking at every single detail of the barbecue process. Other people just want to set something up and then come back 8 hours later or 10 hours later and have finished barbecue. And there are people at every part of the scale in between. Now, for the people who want to get real barbecue flavor and put in minimal effort, the best option, in my opinion, is a pellet smoker. And so I don't have a specific brand that I recommend. I say if you want to taste real smoke, but you don't want to be out there managing a fire and spending hours honing those skills, get a pellet smoker. It's great because you can set the temperature what you want. So you want to cook at 275, you turn a dial to 275, and it goes to 275 and stays there until it runs out of pellets. Talk about easy. Whereas if you have an offset smoker, I think maybe you get better flavor, but you're going to have to be out there every 15 minutes, checking on the fire, checking your temperature, making sure nothing's burning. With a pellet smoker, you get the easiest way you can possibly do real barbecue. All right, now I just opened up this pellet smoker. I know nothing about it. I'm just looking at it for the first time. But it looks like you get a little bit more room even than you would on a Brazos, and the cost of this is half the price. So it's $499 for something that gives you the same amount of real estate essentially, but is much, much easier to operate. The last thing I would say when you're buying a smoker is make sure you get an analog thermometer that's reliable. Now, I have this thermometer on a few of the smokers that I have, and it seems to be consistent, works really well. I've had no issues with it. You could go get a Tell-True, that's kind of the gold standard of thermometers. If you want to spend, 3 or 4 times as much money, totally fine. Just make sure it's reliable, test it, and make sure that the temperature it's reading is accurate, and then you'll be able to cook barbecue without having to go through a huge hassle of trying to plug in probes everywhere. It'll just make your life easier for short cooks. Now, I hope you guys found those reviews helpful. You got to see those smokers and kind of get my opinions on them, because if you're going to spend hours and hours investing into this process to create good barbecue, you have to get a smoker that works well. And so I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, please like the video down below. You can subscribe to the channel to see more informative barbecue content. All right, we'll see y'all next time.